Que bueno, mi gente, Calix Boxing 2.0. I'm here at a weird time for me. So most of the people will be catching this in the archive. So if you're in the archive watching this, put a comment below in the comment section and I get to all of them. I promise you that. If you're catching this live, make sure to hit that like button. This is going to go about 20, 25 minutes, not long tonight, because my brother's over on the HCP network will be doing the roundtable at 7 p.m., which I'll be popping up on over on Ringside Reporter tonight. So this won't go long. Shout out Chauncey Pearls. Tio's dad drank all in Bud Lights he's posing in front of before the Cambosos fight. Shout out Iceman in the building. Look, Teofimo Lopez, what are we to make of him at 140? This fight with Pedro Campa, as I said the other day, it's a flyover fight. It's a drive-by fight. This is a fight that you just skim through. We're looking to see what Teofimo has this weekend, but it's a glorifying sparring session. It's a main event glorified sparring session, which we've been getting too many of, but we swallow it, we deal with it, and that's what we're getting Saturday. The question that I have is what happens after that? What happens after this fight? What happens going forward at 140 if you look at the picture at 140? And I think his future is bright at 140. I understand. I get it because I hear it all the time. And the pushback, the blowback on Teofimo Lopez right now are the things Teofimo Lopez has been saying for a while now. Right? And a lot of people feel this way. But me being a boxing degenerate, I will be in front of my TV watching it. It's the things he's saying, right? I'm the best fighter of my generation. All these fighters are underneath me. I really won the Cambosos fight. I still stand by that. Devin Haney's not worth my time. You know, this stuff he's saying, right? He's above everything and everything is beneath him. I understand. That's the backlash when it comes to Teofimo Lopez. And that's why people after the Cambosos fight were like, ha, 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 you lost the fight. Ha, ha, ha. That's where it comes from. That's the backlash. And it's part of being on top, right? But it's part of being, when you're a humble champion, you're not going to get as much of the blowback when you do fall. And now he's fallen, and now he's seeing that he's getting the blowback. So I get all that. I understand why there's the pushback on Teofimo Lopez. But if we look at this in an unbiased fashion, we look at this in a vacuum, like just pretend that Teofimo Lopez isn't acting like Teofimo Lopez right now. And Teofimo Lopez Sr. is not acting like he is. Because a lot of... I'm hearing some of the quotes from the press conference today, and but it is what it is, right? We deal with it. But if you look at Teofimo Lopez, where he's come from and his future, I still think it's bright. And I appreciate y'all coming in for this short podcast tonight, and make sure y'all hit that like button as y'all come in. People wild and saying Campa made KO. I think the betting line shifted and Tio is not as big a favorite. Last I saw is minus 2,500. It might have went down to like minus 2,400 or something like that, but humongous betting odds, wide odds. Look, Campa's not going to be competitive. He's just not. There's a reason they picked him. And if Teofimo Lopez looks anything but stellar in this fight, you should be a little bit alarmed because Campa's a guy he should walk all over. He should march all over him. It should be an easy night for Teofimo. He should get him out of there. I'm interested to see what the over-under will be when they come out tomorrow, the prop bets. I'm pretty sure it's going to be low because he should beat Campa by stoppage in this fight. I'm just not looking forward to this fight, to be quite honest. I'm looking forward to what happens after it. I don't expect much. Boxing Historian. Shout out my guy, Boxing Historian 206. What up, Calix? 2, Matador. Iceman in the building. Tio talking like that is only putting even more pressure on himself. For real. Yeah. And some people perform better when they put a lot of pressure on themselves. So keep that in mind. As far as what Tio say, I do believe him when he said some of these bloggers and so-called media people are getting paid by fighters and promoters to push a narrative. Yeah. He's right about that. I did see that quote. And you're absolutely right to pick up on that. I did see that quote. However, the context of it, I didn't really agree with him bringing it up when the question was asked because he was asked about Devin Haney, and then he starts to bring up the media. So if he was asked a different question and then said that, I would take him at face value. I agree what he's saying, but he's asked about Devin Haney. To me, that's a way of him skating past the question, because Devin Haney eventually pops up at 140. Devin Haney and Teofimo are the same size. So it's a guy he should be excited to want to fight. It's a guy that it's an easier fight to make, being that they're under the same banner. So it's a more realistic fight. So I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive in answering those questions other than skating them and changing the subject. But Teofimo's Teofimo right now. I'm more interested to see what he's going to do inside the ring, because I already know that Teofimo, I'm going to get outside of the ring. His comments are kind of all over the place. He seems Tyson Fury-ish. So Tyson Fury is all over the place outside the ring, but he's still able to compartmentalize that and perform well inside the ring. So that's what I want to see from Teofimo. I can forgive the out of ring stuff if a fighter is giving me entertainment. I said about Deontay Wilder. The out of ring stuff, don't like it, but if he's giving me what he gave me in the third Tyson Fury fight, count me in. But as far as Teofimo and the landscape at 140, I think the landscape is opening up nicely for him at 140. And that's why I say I think he's going to have a nice run at 140. You look at the landscape, Josh Taylor was just mandated by the IBF to fight Jeremiah Ponce. And that fight's not going to happen. He's got, I think, 12 days to answer that. And he's likely going to say, go to hell. And he's going to drop the IBF. He's already dropped the WBA and WBC. Those have been vacated. Those are going to be fights for other fighters. The IBF is going to be Ponce versus somebody else for the vacant belt, likely. And then Josh Taylor is going to be left with the WBO. He wants to fight one more time at 140 against Jack Catterall. But that fight is up in the air due to some litigation on Jack Catterall's side. But ultimately, Josh Taylor will be vacating the division, moving up to 147, and all the belts will be vacant. Possibly, Teofimo will have a shot at the WBO, but if not, he'll be first in line for either the WBO, WBC, WBA, or IBF. He'll be first in line. So the landscape is opening up well for him at 140. You have a lot of good fighters mixing it up at 140. I love the 140-pound division. If Josh Taylor moves up, you still got Prograis, you still got Catterall, you still got Jose Ramirez, you still got Jose Zepeda, you got Akhmedov, you got Sandor Martin, who upset Mikey Garcia, you got Mateus, you got Ryan Garcia moving into the division, you still got Pedraza there. Devin Haney will move up into the division eventually, and who knows who else. So, fun division. It's a fun division, and Teofimo's going to have opportunities in that division to win a belt, and I do believe he'll win a belt in 2023, a legitimate belt. He'll be first in line as a mandatory for one of those fights. A guy will jump at the opportunity to fight him because he's a big name, and I don't think he's a guy who necessarily scares guys at 140, to be honest. I don't think Teofimo is seen as a boogeyman by other guys at 140. So I think he'll get a shot at a mandatory shot in 2023. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him win that fight, because he would be the betting favorite in most of those fights, if not all of them, besides Regis Prograis and possibly a Jose Ramirez. But Ramirez is going to get the shot at Regis Prograis and Zepeda. So I think it lines up well for Teofimo to make a run at 140. And here's my other point with Teofimo. I understand the Kambosos fight is fresh in people's minds. I get it. Did not go well. Was ugly. Look, esophagus, no esophagus. You show up to the fight, you get in the ring, you got to perform. Did not perform. Should have walked away from the fight if it was that dire. I understand why he didn't. The fight kept getting pushed back and back and back, but ultimately you stepped in the ring and you lost to Kambosos, and Kambosos was a huge underdog in the fight, I believe plus 800. So a fight that Teofimo Lopez should have walked through according to Vegas, and he loses. And he loses in ugly fashion. He leaves a lot of question marks. But here's what I'll pitch to you. When I say that Teofimo Lopez is going to have a nice run at 140. A guy who beats Lomachenko the way that Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko doesn't just disappear. That guy just doesn't disappear. A guy who beats a guy who is universally recognized as likely the pound for pound king. You got to remember, there's revisionist history now. Lomachenko and Terence Crawford were 1A, 1B. People were going back and forth at that time in 2020 as to who is the pound for pound king. Is it Lomachenko? Is it Terence Crawford? And Canelo was in the mix as well, but those two guys were seen as 1A, 1B. So if we're calling Lomachenko the pound for pound king at that point, and Teofimo Lopez was a healthy betting underdog in that fight, and he comes in and he beats Lomachenko 8 rounds in the fight. And it's not that he just that he won 8 rounds. It's not that he just beat him. He beat him in impressive fashion. Every time that Lomachenko tried his angles, tried to do that, everything he normally does to perfection against other guys, Teofimo cut him off, cut him off, and cut him off at every stop. First 7 rounds, he sweeps it. And I understand there's rumblings about a shoulder injury, all that stuff. But like I said, you find your way in the ring on fight night. No excuses. You are who you are. You stepped in the ring. Teofimo beats him. 116, 112 on my scorecard. And the impressive thing about that fight to me, I always go back to the 12th round because he won 1 through 7 on my scorecard. Lomachenko stepped up the pressure and looked more like Lomachenko in rounds 8 through 11. And the momentum completely shifted to Lomachenko. What happens between 11 and 12? Teofimo steps out of that stool and says, this is my night. This is my fight. I'm winning it right here. And I was worried about it. I was texting D-Style at the time. I was like, I don't want this to turn into a Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson situation. Remember that fight when Danny Garcia won the first 7 rounds and then Lamont Peterson absolutely beat up Danny Garcia from rounds 8 to 12. Beat him up. And it looked like that situation, and the people who don't score the fight round by round thought Lamont Peterson just watched Danny Garcia. Beat him up. And it looked like Lamont Peterson won the fight, but Danny Garcia won the bout. And it left a cloud there as to who's the better fighter. Was there controversy with the scoring? I didn't want that situation with the Teofimo fight. And what did Teofimo do? He got off that stool going into the 12th round and said, this is my night. I'm winning this round and I'm winning this fight. And he won the round decisively against Lomachenko. And that 12th round in the Lomachenko fight was Teofimo's best round of his career. And I can't get that out of my head. I don't care what I saw, like the Kambosos fight. I get it. It was ugly. But I still can't get that 12th round out of my head. That dude still exists. Like that dude just does not disappear. You don't beat the pound for pound king. A guy who is viewed as the pound for pound king and just disappears. The reason that I say Bivol likely beats Zerto. Bivol likely beats Boazzi easily. Bivol, I would likely favor against Beterbiev. Anybody at 175 because, yes, Canelo was moving up in weight, but he beat Canelo quite easily. And a guy who beats the pound for pound king doesn't just disappear. He doesn't just disappear. And I don't think Teofimo Lopez, I'm seeing people compare him to Victor Ortiz. Victor Ortiz was once a promising talent, all that stuff. And I understand it. I get the comparison. I've even made it myself outside of the ring when it comes to Teofimo and Victor Ortiz. But Victor Ortiz was in some good fights, but mostly disappeared as to what his ceiling was supposed to be as a fighter because of the head stuff. Wasn't all there upstairs. Teofimo, although at times seems like he could be a head case, still too much raw talent there for a dude to just disappear. So I don't buy that he's going to win this fight once he steps up at 140. He's going to lose again. And every time he steps up for a belt, for a shot, for a bigger fight, say against a Ryan Garcia, say against a Devin Haney, say against a Zepeda, a Jose Ramirez, I don't buy that he's going to lose all these fights. I think he's going to win some. He's going to win most of them. He's going to lose some. I think he will lose some fights. I don't think he's going to be the best fighter of his generation, but I think he's going to have a nice run at 140. I just think he's too talented. Too talented. Half the things Tio has said this week, the other half I said, I think he's bat crazy. Shout out to the shoe shine. Meant to say half the stuff I agree with, the other half. And that's right. Like it's a mixed bag, right? I said the same thing about Tyson Fury. It's a mixed bag. Tyson Fury, sometimes he seems completely sane, level-headed, talking common sense. And then today he's overflying to Iceland, apparently to go try to talk this Icelandic tough man into a fight. It's like, that's Tyson Fury. And I think Teofimo is the same way. Some of it might be self-marketing. And at least Teofimo's out there, right? Talking to the media, getting Bud Light deals, all that good stuff. That's good. That's all that good stuff is good to say, good to see. But you have to back it up in the ring in order for it to be sustainable. And what I'm saying is, to me, Teofimo is sustainable. He's a sustainable talent. He's got too much raw talent. I've seen too much from him up to this point for him to just disappear as a fighter. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that he's going to lose every fight stepping up at 140 from here on out. I don't buy that he's not going to translate at 140. I don't buy that he can't possibly at some point sneak into the lower part of the top 10 pound for pound. I don't think he'll ever be pound for pound number 1, number 2, number 3. Some people might disagree with me there. Some people may see that ceiling. And like I said, you beat the pound for pound king 8 rounds to 4. That ceiling could be there. But what I'm saying is he's going to have a nice run at 140. He just is. That guy that showed up against Lomachenko doesn't just disappear from one bad night. So the question is that everybody's asking, is the real Teofimo Lopez the guy who showed up against Kambosos, or is it the guy who showed up against Lomachenko? Did he just have one great fluke night, or did he have just one bad fluke night? Or is the truth, as it almost always is, somewhere in the middle? I would venture to guess it's somewhere in the middle, but I think it's closer to the Lomachenko side than the Kambosos side. But 140, it looks good to me, the landscape for Teofimo stepping up. I got a lot of respect for the division, love the division, but I think he's going to get the fights that he needs to get in order to accumulate wins and get his career back on track. Shout out JC, my guy in the building. According to Haney fans, every fighter in this era, their career revolves around him. I've talked about this, man. I respect the hell out of Devin Haney, how he's conducted his career up until this point. A lot of guys wouldn't have took the risk, calculated risk, we call it, in order to go over, sign a multi-fight deal with Top Rank in order to get the fights he wants for the legacy. I appreciate dudes who fight for legacy. I know they all fight for money, and I appreciate that, but I appreciate the dudes who make boxing resemble a sport, and Haney does that for me. When I follow Haney's career, it resembles a sport. I bring up Tank's name because it's the easiest example of a guy who his career doesn't resemble a sport to me. It resembles a business, an attraction. Ryan Garcia as well, up to this point, an attraction. Devin Haney, to me, resembles a guy who is fighting for legacy, understands that championships matter, and he's getting money too. Respect that, but he understands that championships matter. Each division has a championship, 4 championships to strive for. He wants that. He understands the history, lineal, all that good stuff, and he wants that. He wants those goals. And then once he gets it, like he got it, he wants to be respected as the champion, and he wants to defend his belts. And the reason I brought this up is because Bob Arum the other day was out there saying if Haney beats Kambosos in the rematch, he gets a shot at Lomachenko. I'm like, no. It goes back to resembling a sport over a business, right? For me, anyway, as a boxing fan. Haney's a champion. I know it's semantics. I understand the semantics, and maybe Bob Arum just slipped up. But it matters. Haney is the champion. So if Haney beats Kambosos in the rematch, which he has to honor because Kambosos has the rematch clause, which he put in negotiation, so you say he earned it. If he wins that fight, Lomachenko gets the fight with Haney. That's how you word that. That's how you say it. I know it's semantics, but the wording, the terminology matters. Haney doesn't get a shot at Lomachenko. Lomachenko gets a shot at Haney. Lomachenko has 0 belts at 135. Haney has 4. All of them. All 4. Lomachenko gets a shot at the champion. The champion doesn't get a shot at the contender. It matters. And as fans, we have to recognize that stuff. Like I said, we got to check these people. We got to check the managers, promoters, the fanagers, all that good stuff, and more on that tomorrow because I got a lot to say about the fanagers once again, because I don't know if you caught I had some people with their panties in a bunch yesterday on Twitter speaking about all the pay-per-views and a lot of Stockholm syndrome it resembles Stockholm syndrome to me when it comes to a lot of these super fans of certain promoters, managers, and fighters. They're willing to sacrifice the good of the sport for their particular promoter and fighter, sacrifice the sustainability of the sport thriving in order to uplift their favorite fighter or promoter. And I don't have time for it. I don't have time for it. So more on that tomorrow. But this terminology matters. Devin Haney gets the respect as a champion. He went out and earned that. You can call him email champion, all that good stuff, whatever you want, but he earned it. Jojo Diaz, Jorge Linares earns his way up, gets the Kambosos fight, goes over to Australia, signs a 3 to 4 fight deal with Top Rank, where he has to sign a rematch clause in order to go back to Australia if he wins the fight. He does all that. He goes out there and wins the fight easily. It's looking like he's going to have to go October 15th back out to Australia. If he wins that fight again, Lomachenko gets the shot at him. Lomachenko is the contender with 0 belts. Haney is the champion with 4 belts. Let's speak like fans. Let's speak like people who want this to resemble a sport. Lomachenko may be the bigger name. Universally. Nobody would argue that. Lomachenko may even be pound for pound the better fighter. I wouldn't argue that, but I know people who do. I have Devin Haney in my pound for pound list. I don't have Lomachenko as of right now. But if you have it the other way, I get it. Subjective. But as of right now, as far as lightweight, 135, Haney is a champion. Lomachenko is the contender. And when Bob Arum speaks, Bob Arum has to speak with respect for his champion. His champion. And if I was Devin Haney and I heard that, I'd be like, wait a second. No. And I think Devin Haney did. Devin Haney did on Twitter. He quote tweeted it. He said, no. You're not going to respect. You better respect me. You're not going to treat me like I'm the challenger. I have all the belts in my trophy case. Everything that matters at 135 belongs to me. It belongs to me. So I understand like Haney's not everybody's cup of tea. I get it. I completely get it. Not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody wants to watch jab, hold. I get it. I understand it. But even if it's not your cup of tea, you got to at least respect that he's got ownership of everything that matters in that division. He has ownership of. He's cornered the division. Anybody who wants anything meaningful in that division has to come through Devin Haney. No, I get it. I get that it has to be a business too. He's not a big name. He has to be reasonable, realistic, but he's still the champion. Haney needs to be respected. He's did what most of these fighters are not willing to do. He's about legacy. And I appreciate dudes who give me legacy. And I appreciate the fighters who make this sport resemble a sport. It has to resemble a sport. More on that tomorrow because I got a lot to say about the fanagers. I also have a lot to say about what promoters, managers, network execs have done to this sport to make it more exclusive instead of inclusive. They're turning this into a country club sport, much like baseball has done, Major League Baseball. I saw a quote with Gary V on YouTube the other day saying the everyday American can't name the top 5 baseball players in the sport right now. They can't, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get more into that tomorrow. But boxing is also putting a growing number of things behind an added paywall. They're monetizing everything, it seems. Every app is going up. DAZN, ESPN Plus, Showtime. More pay-per-views. PBC promised us no pay-per-views. Now we're getting all pay-per-views. DAZN promised us no pay-per-views. Now we're getting a growing number of pay-per-views from DAZN. Bob Arum is out there complaining because he can't make money off of pay-per-views when he's been raping the pay-per-view market for years. Don't want to hear it. You built this system. You got to work your way and try to figure out how to navigate it. That doesn't fall on me as a consumer, but I'm telling you, I'm just warning you. Once again, more on this tomorrow. You're pricing people out. You're turning this into a country club sport. You're pricing poor people out. You're pricing the middle class out. There's going to be a growing number of people, especially when the managers is telling you, don't complain. Stop complaining. If you don't like it, just don't watch it. Okay. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. Just warning you, be careful what you wish for. You tell people not to complain just because there's something on the TV, something that they have to buy. Don't complain about the pay-per-view. Just don't buy it. It's easy. Okay. Be careful what you wish for. This has happened in other sports as well. They're making this sport exclusive instead of inclusive. The world is going one way. Boxing is going the other. We have to turn it this way. I'm telling you, I see the red flags everywhere. Tend to overlook that. The GOAT Mario P in the building. Haney and Teofimo earn their accolades the right way. Ryan is just a marketing star. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I tend to be more attracted, navigate towards the fighters who are making this sport resemble a sport the most. And when a sport resembles a sport, like when you watch football, it culminates to a championship every year. The NBA, you got 16 teams. I think it's actually, 20 teams now in the playoffs. And they work their way up to a champion. Major League Baseball, college football. It's like that in every sport. Boxing is this sport that you look at 175 right now. We're one fight away from having a champion. One fight away. And there's no excuse as to why that fight can't happen. Beterbiev versus Bivol. We were one fight away from it. Beterbiev wins. He walks through Joe Smith Jr. after Bivol beats Canelo. And everybody's like, oh my God, these two dudes are two of the best top 10 pound for pound fighters in the sport. We need to see these two dudes. This is one of the best pure fights that could be made in boxing. And Bob, before the fight even happens, says, no. You know what? I know you want to see that fight. I know you want to see Undisputed, but guess what? I got something better. Beterbiev versus Yard. And we're all like, what the hell is this? Beterbiev versus Yard. Where'd that come from? So then Eddie comes around and he's like, since you're going to do Beterbiev versus Yard, we'll go over here and do fights. Canelo doesn't exercise the immediate rematch. He wants that in May 2023. So they mandate Bivol versus Zerto. And Eddie comes along and says, no. You know what? I know you like that fight. I know it's a good consolation prize as to instead of Bivol versus Beterbiev, but I got something better. I'll give you Bivol versus Buatsi. And we're like, what? Where did that come from? Nothing against Buatsi. I think he's a good fighter, but not Zerto. Zerto has been in line longer than Buatsi. Zerto earned the shot more than Buatsi did. So luckily, the WBA rejects that this week and says, no, Eddie, you're not going to get Buatsi. You're going to go fight. Bivol's going to go fight Zerto. But instead of us getting to Undisputed, instead of this championship culminating, when it should have, they're going to over-marinate the process, and we may never get Undisputed at 175 now between these two fighters. Because now we got to do Bivol versus Zerto. Eddie wants to do Bivol versus Buatsi after that. Then Bivol is going to have to do the rematch with Canelo likely. So we're talking about likely 4 fights now if they win every fight in between now and then. And Beterbiev is 37 years old right now. So now we may be looking at undisputed between Bivol and Beterbiev if everything goes right. Early 2024, maybe late 2023. And this is what I'm talking about with boxing. They can mess up these promoters can mess up a wet dream. They could. They cock block undisputed. This is the championship of the division. This is a Super Bowl of the division. It's like NFL saying, who's in the Super Bowl? I don't know. I'll just throw out names. The San Francisco 49ers versus the Buffalo Bills. San Francisco wins the NFC, Buffalo Bills win the AFC. But the NFL comes in and cock blocks and says right before the game's supposed to happen, they say, no, you know what? I know you want to see 49ers versus Bills. I know it's the 2 best teams, but here's what I'll give you instead. 49ers versus the Bengals. Like, wait, no, that's not what happened. We went through the playoffs already. They won the NFC, they won the AFC. Give me that one instead. But this is what boxing does all too often. So on that note, man, I got to roll out. This is a short one because my boys over on Ringside Reporter are doing the aftermath, not the aftermath, the round table, and I will be popping up on that later on. So go over to the Ringside Reporter live to check that out. Go Niners. Appreciate my boy Chauncey Pearls always popping up and always supporting. So appreciate that, man. On that note, y'all go over there and I'll catch y'all tomorrow for a really good episode. Longer episode at that. Appreciate it, guys.